Okay, how's everybody doing?
What did you say? How are we doing? Good. Doing great.
I should just start emailing you all the lecture from last class. So we're going to go over a whole lot of stuff today. I first thought I'd start with the project. How many of you? Just out of curiosity, the people who are repeating the class, how many of you are doing a lip sync for this? All right, cool. Everybody else who's taking the class for the first time, have you had a chance to look for any audio clips or anything yet? All right, so we get a little bit more time on that. I want to talk about the lip sync project, and then I'm actually going to go through the process of doing a lip sync today in class. So first and foremost, let's read the project. Lip sync. Most of you have probably already read this. Again, the point of this is that a lip sync animation is actually just secondary action, right? Lip sync is not special. We're pretty much just doing the same project we just did, except now you have an extra complication. Now you have the complication of timing being added onto the original acting piece, right? So we have the issues of emphasis, timing, like style, the character's voice, the character that you're animating with. All of those things are elements that the audio track adds to it. So again, verbal communication is far more complex than simply words coming out of your mouth. The body acting carries the majority of the message we're communicating, but source audio requires us to adhere to preset timing and intensity. Adding well-executed face animation on top of that will only accentuate the performance. So what we're going to be starting with today is actually a fully, not fully finished, but at least a pretty close.
Okay,
Sorry. Let me turn off the sound for this. So this is something I've already animated to an audio clip, and I'm going to show you how to get the audio in there, and then I'm going to show you some tricks on how to create lip sync really quickly, or at least quicker than you might think. So let's stop here. What we're doing, using any human rig and an audio clip from a live action film or TV source, create a short lip sync animation of a single character speaking a line of dialogue. I use dialogue. You can have two characters speaking in your scene, but you are only going to animate one of them. So the other one should be off screen if it's a conversation between two people. The most effective audio clips show the character going through a change of emotion. A lot of times people will find a line that they think is funny, and that's cool, but it doesn't necessarily show acting. Just like a comedian telling a joke isn't always showing acting. It doesn't mean that it's not, but it's not a selling point of your ability to create convincing animation. It's a selling point of a comedian to write a good joke that you took the audio clip from. So try to find something that actually lets you flex your ability to animate emotion. So you can use any audio clip from film or TV, but my past experiences have shown the things that don't make good audio clips. Podcasts, YouTube celebrities, the audio on those are a lot of times like kind of muffled and usually a little bit out of context. It may be as funny if you've listened to the other 20 minutes of that podcast, but by itself doesn't always stand alone as entertaining. Again, you may be able to prove me wrong on that with a very well-selected clip, but a lot of times those are just confusing to people who watch them. Audio from animations or audio from games that already exist. There may be a great audio clip from, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out a good game. What's the one that's Borderlands or something like that. That's great, but you're always going to be compared to the animations done in Borderlands. There's plenty of great audio clips for animated films. Your animation is probably not going to be better than those audio clips. So one of the things to look at there is characters that were animated for visual effects films as well. That would kind of fall into that same category. You don't want to necessarily be animating the Incredible Hulk's line and trying to do better than they did at ILM on that shot, right? Audio of yourself acting, I put this one in there just because a lot of times the quality of this isn't that great. There are people in this department who are good actors, so if you are able to get good audio clip of yourself doing that, but really you have to be just as good of an actor as you are an animator to get a good audio clip of that. Having said that, there are some people who do great voice acting in this department and do a lot of acting for the stage as well. So your animation should not exceed 10 seconds. I would expect it to be 5 to 7 seconds long, and you'll turn in a rendered video, MP4, H.264. That's all pretty common. This project is also eligible for animators wanting to work in 2D, so you probably should chat that out with me a little bit before you get into that too much. Anybody interested in doing this one in 2D? All right. Okay, so when is this due? I close that. So let's try it again. When is this due? This will be due on the day of our final, and you get to pick that. Now, you already are familiar with how ETSU, hopefully you're already familiar with how ETSU final exams work. Digital media classes are 4 credit hours, which means they take up enough of a time slot to warrant 2 class periods. And so because of that, we usually get the option for 2 class times to have our final. Our options right now are, since we are Tuesday, Thursday, 2:15 to 5:05, we can either do Tuesday, April 30th at 10:30 a.m. or Thursday, April 2nd at 10:30 a.m. Okay. This usually isn't a hard one, but I swear last semester I had a class that voted for an 8 a.m. Monday final. It was the principal, huh? I think it was principals. It was one of the early classes. Having said that, like, there is a reason to have the early one, which is you might get to go home early for the semester then and not just stay all week. But I mean, half of you are graduating, so you're going to stay till Saturday anyway. So it doesn't matter to me though. Like, I'll be here all week, and so I always leave this up to a vote. Again, the benefit of the earlier date is you get to get done with this earlier. The benefit of the later date, you get 2 extra days to work on it. In the case of this one, it's at 10:30 a.m. either way, and so it's not like the waking up early is an issue on this one. I mean, it's early-ish, I guess. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to a vote. How many of you are voting for Tuesday? Really? Seriously, or? Yeah. Okay. No, that's cool. I get it. But I'm pretty sure you're going to get outvoted. How many of you are voting for Thursday? Okay. So one of the things about this is, I have had people who, like, for some other reason, just really needed it to be the early date. Having said that, you can always get yours turned in early if that's what you want to do, and like that way you have that time to in between there to just pack up your dorm or whatever. All right, so it looks like by popular vote, Thursday, May 2nd, 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. pull out your handy dandy devices and put that in the calendar so I don't get a swarm of emails on the Monday of finals week asking me when the final is.
Yeah, great. What are you going to email us if we ask you?
I left it out of this one. But okay, so May 2nd, add. And that's 10:30 to 12:30. Okay. So, let's go ahead. Thursday, May 2nd, 10:30 a.m. Try that again. Update. Okay. So look at that. We're getting stuff done. So we have that scheduled. So there's a couple other things I want to look at kind of briefly. One is our schedule. So today is the 11th, right there where I have it highlighted. We are going to we just kicked off Project 4. In a little bit here, we're going to kick off Exercise 4. And I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about some extra credit opportunities. So let's just go ahead and do that one first. Extra credit opportunities, a lot of you are in portfolio. Some of you went to the earlier portfolio review. If we look all the way down here on Thursday, week 15 or 14, however you're counting these, that is when we are going to have the second batch of portfolio reviews, Thursday and Friday of that week, the week before finals week. So that's again open for extra credit only if you haven't, you can only use it once basically. I would encourage you to go both times though, mainly so you get to see the progress. You get to see the people who had a maybe not a great presentation at the midpoint and they turned it around and into a really strong one by the end. You get to see the people who had a great presentation and then didn't do much throughout the rest of the semester and they have a poor one at the end. You get to see like the whole spectrum of it and you get to decide which of those you would like yours to be when you are taking that class. If you are in portfolio, you are eligible for this, but only if you put something in the extra credit folder. So please do that. There is one other piece of extra credit I am going to toss out there. Again, the extra credit amount for this is if you do the portfolio reviews, it's 1 point on 1 point on your lowest project grade, right? Which if you count that in percentage points, it's about 4 points on the overall percentage. It could raise you from an 80 to an 84. It could raise you from like a 90 to a 94, right? So this could be a difference in a letter grade. I'm going to go ahead and give you one more additional extra credit opportunity, which is, as you've probably seen from portfolio, having a portfolio is very important. So the other piece of extra credit that I will give you is on the day of the final, verify to, we can get the same amount of extra credit, 1 extra credit point on any of your major projects by turning in a demo reel or portfolio. So you're not in that class yet, but wait, yes, it counts for everybody. You're not in that class yet, but having gone through that class, like The people who haven't gone through that class, you still need to have a portfolio. You have one whether you realize it or not. The issue is whether you're really ready to leverage that in a moment's notice when it might benefit you. There have been plenty of times that I've had people contact me and say, hey, I'm looking for an intern. Do you know anybody? And I have to say, yes, I know lots of people, and they don't have a portfolio yet, so I can't give them to you. Like, put something together. If you're not like, immediately after every one of your classes, you should be remixing your portfolio. Like, every semester, you should be making a new portfolio. If you make a new piece that you liked better than one of your other pieces, you should be making a new portfolio. Like, you should be able to change your portfolio in 15 minutes to apply to a very specific job. So this is something that you are capable of doing. So I want you, because there are some people who have already made it to this level and never put together their version of a portfolio. If you're wanting to do animation, your version of that is a demo reel. And so a demo reel, just a video of all of the stuff you're wanting to do. If you're in character animation, by the time we get to the end of this class, you will have done enough animations just in this class to make a portfolio out of it, or to make a demo reel out of it. In fact, that's why the class is designed this way. If you were to take no other classes but this class, the things that we do in here would be enough to put together into a portfolio if it were all done well. So if you do that, it's one more extra credit point on one of the project grades. So totally, I am offering you to be able to raise one of your project grades by 8 points just by doing a couple of small things, right? I do that because I think that they're both very important for you to do. So, exercise 4 we'll talk about here in just a bit. I kind of interrupt the lecture and talk about exercise 4. So that leaves us with 2 classes where I'm going to talk, and one of them is today. So today I'm doing a lecture on lip sync. Next class period I'll be doing a lecture on overlapping action. I know there's a bunch of people who won't be here. When are you all leaving for CGC? This time morning? Okay, so you'll all probably not be here. It'll probably be kind of a smaller class. I'm going to test drive the ECGC overlapping action presentation on you. Yeah, so that's what's happening over the next 2 class periods. Immediately after this class on Tuesday, I go get in my car and drive to Raleigh. So I won't be here the following Thursday, but the class period is reserved for this class, so you are welcome to come here and work. You're welcome to do whatever you need to do. But more than likely, at that point, you're going to be, like, the project is going to be underway pretty well. Now, when we come back on the 15th, on week 15, on the 23rd, that's when we're going to do a little mini review of what you've gotten done. So that's probably when we'll do the discussion board sync sketch thing. So, all right, questions about any of this? All right. So, I've already animated this to an audio piece. I've taken out the audio just so I can show you how to bring audio in. But the audio clip that I have animated here is to, oh, that's not it. This piece of audio.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Been doing it since I was 19.
So again, I usually look at television shows, usually ones without a laugh track, for good sources of audio. There's just a lot of 1 or 2 liners in there that are very dense with information or content, right? You can pack a lot of character into one line, and television shows are good at doing that. Movies sometimes can be too, if you find very pivotal moments in it. I pulled this one from Superstore. Anybody watch that one? I really should watch that show. It's funny. And this is what I've animated the line to. Now, if you've never imported audio into Maya, it's actually not terribly hard. You take this, let me find it here, audio clip, and you drag it and you drop it. And so now the audio is in there. If I right click and go to sound, it's right here, Glenn Bike. Now you'll see that it's not showing up on my timeline. And the reason is because I'm currently on frames 100 to 200. That's where I put my animation. And if I go back here to frame 1, you'll see that
it's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19.
you can see the audio track along the bottom there. Now the reason I put it, it should automatically put it at, starting at frame 0, I think. The reason I started animating on frame 1, though, is I always like to give myself about 100 frames of work time, right? 100 frames, maybe I can test out some poses there. I have one keyframe where I'm holding my bind pose. And if I wanted to go back to, like, say, frame 30 and just do a couple of hand poses, that's some space I can use to do that without having to worry about messing up my shot. But that means I need to scoot my audio clip forward to start on frame 100 to make sense. So if I right click on here and go to sound, go to Glenn Bike 01 and choose the options, you'll see that I have the option to include silence for so many frames. And so if I just type in 100 there, I'll get 100 frames of silence, and then my animations will start on frame 100. So what I get there is,
it's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19.
now sometimes this whole process doesn't work. If you drag and drop that audio clip, and then you right click and go to sound and there's nothing there, that means Maya didn't recognize that audio clip. And there's a couple of reasons that could be the case. One is Maya doesn't recognize an MP3 file, and it doesn't recognize a WAV file if the WAV file is 32-bit. So what you need is a 16-bit WAV file. So I don't know how you get your audio. There's a couple of ways. You could record it with OBS. You could use like a YouTube downloader or something like that. But you're going to probably have to convert that to a 16-bit WAV file. And to do that, you can just take it into Premiere, drag that audio clip in there, you can edit it, and export out 16-bit WAV. So once you have that, you can drag it and drop it, get it in here. Now sometimes people will hit play, and even though they see the little lines on the bottom here, they're not able to hear it. And the reason for that is you have to be set to, your playback speed has to be set to real time. If it's set to play every frame max real time, no audio at all, right? If it's set to play every frame, there's no audio at all. You have to go by that playback speed, real time, and then you should get...
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19.
Okay. Now the other thing. This line's going to get really annoying. Like every line gets really annoying. It doesn't matter how much you liked it when you picked it out, you're going to hate it soon. That's okay. That's why people pay you money to do this, and you're not doing it just for free, right? Well, I mean, you're doing it free now, but later you'll get paid money. So, but that's okay. Like really, it becomes part of the job, right? If you, like, there'll be a point where you're only hearing sounds. You're not hearing words. You're not hearing this character's voice over and over again. There's a reason I picked his like nasally voice to do this, is to reiterate to you, it's going to get annoying. That's okay, you just have to get over it. So
it's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19.
A good portion of this is getting very familiar with these sounds, getting very familiar with the cadence, getting very familiar with all the different things in this. There is, not only will it get annoying, you will also likely remember that line forever. I have many lines that are in languages I cannot speak that I can quote verbatim. So like you're just going to get used to that. So Don't worry about that too much. Although this one may start to annoy you a little bit today. So there's one more thing before we get started. Obviously, you want to make some sort of way of picking your character's face. So for me, I like to go to my channel box. For Malcolm, he has a set of a picker that comes with him, but I didn't install it. What I am going to do though is set up my screen to be these two spaces, and so I have a panel side by side, and then in my outliner, Malcolm has a set of controls for his whole face. Now that's going to be a little overkill in this case, but it was the easiest one for me to select, and I've already got a set of controls for it. So if you go to face controls right here and select all of them, you can make a button, and you'll see that I've actually already done that. It's right there, face. Right. And what that's going to allow me to control, or allow me to select, is all of Malcolm's face controls. However, what I'm mainly going to be working on in this case is his jaw control, which is right here, right? And these lip controls that are right here. So we have a couple. We have one that moves his mouth, entire mouth up and down. We have one for the top lip. We have one for the bottom lip. One for each of the corners of the mouth. Now I usually go ahead and set my move space to be object space, because in Malcolm's case, if I wanted to push his mouth in and out, I would use the translate X to do that, right? So that just makes it a little easier to do that. So my face picker will pick all of that. Let me mute this. Sorry, I'll check that out. So so I have a button that picks his entire face, and that's what I'm going to be animating on through this. So got a keyframe on there at the beginning. Now there's one more thing I'm going to encourage you to install, and that's a plugin. And this plugin saves you a lot of time, especially when it comes to animating the face. If only I knew where it was. There it is. So it's called Studio Library. In fact, if you just search Studio Library, you'll probably find it. You can also search, because I can never remember the name of it, Maya Pose Library, and it'll bring this up as well. So you can hit the download button and get that. But I actually already put it up on the resources folder for you. Use this Studio Library 2.41. In fact, I'll delete this old one. And what you're going to do is you're going to extract that into your folder. And so you'll see that I've already done that, Studio Library 2.41. And you're going to drag this install Python into Maya's viewport. So drag that, drop it here. And what it's going to do is it's going to create this little blue button right here. And if you click that little blue button, it's going to give you this. Now, once you've prepared your shot, I can animate a full lip sync of 10 seconds of animation in probably under 20 minutes. This is an extremely helpful tool. I've gone ahead and created some poses, but I'll show you how to create some more poses here in a minute. I just created these in the previous class. For you, your second animation with the character, if you're using Malcolm, you do this, you're going to build a pose library for him. Your second animation will be the one that goes much faster, or the second half of your lip sync. So as you start creating these poses, you'll eventually build this library of the poses you need to do the lip sync. And then we can just dial these in, or even blend them in order to get better lip sync animation. So, let's talk about that just a little bit. So when we're talking about lip sync, I'm going to show you two different processes for that today. Like I mentioned before, I have the way that I like to animate, and other people have the ways that they like to animate. In the past, I showed, or I mentioned, like sort of an offhand comment to a group, a way of doing lip sync differently than how I had done it in class. And they tried it, and it worked really well for them. And I realized, okay, the way I do it may not work well for everybody. So I showed it to the next few classes. Some classes hate one way and love the other. Some of them are vice versa. Some of you may find a weird combination way of doing that. So what I'm going to do today is animate half of this line in the way that I usually animate, and then I'll animate the other half of the line using the other method that I was talking about. So method one, method two. So the method that I usually do is the phoneme or the viseme method, which is every noise that you make, every sound that you make when you're talking, your face has to make a shape, right? Particularly your mouth when you're talking. So depending on what noise you're making, your mouth will be in a different configuration, a different shape, right? So for example, let's try, this is the audience participation part, if you want. So let's start with the word, let's try make, the word make. Everybody say that with me, make. Okay, so I want you to notice the, bless you. Everybody sneeze with me, ready? So I want you to notice like that, the beginning of that, the M sound, right? Make. Now what I want you to try to do is I want you to try to say that word without touching your lips together. Hey, right? It's really, really difficult to make the M sound without touching your lips together, right? Frankly, the way it works is we're burning more calories to even try. So our bodies don't try. Like we learn to do things in efficient ways. And so when we say the word make, in order to get that sound, we have to go to that M viseme or phoneme. And that's just putting our lips together and allowing that noise to build up inside of our mouth. Right? The M shapes are very, sort of very interesting to me because those are the ones that require you to sort of, like the sound is mainly created when you release from that shape, right? So pop, right? That's what makes the sound, is when you release from that mouth being closed. Try saying pop without putting your lips together. You just made a grunting noise at that point, right? So the MBs, the Ps, is your mouth together, right? There's noises that are much more the opposite of that, where we just open our mouth and let air come out, like ah, right? Like avocado, right? I love avocados. How do you all feel about avocados? Oh no, avocado's good. Avocado, right? That's really just our mouth is open and we're going right? So that's a much easier noise to make. Try making that with your mouth closed, right? It doesn't sound like avocado, right? Other shapes require us to do stuff with our teeth or our tongue, right? For example, snake, right? To get that, we usually put our teeth together a little bit and kind of hiss through them, snake, right? Like liar, right? Let's try something with an L in it, lie, right? That requires us to put our tongue to the roof of our mouth and make that noise, right? Try saying liar without letting your tongue touch the roof of your mouth. You can't do it, right? I mean, you can do it, like, and actually that's why ventriloquists are so impressive. If that was easy, like everybody would be doing it. It's not very easy to do. So all of these shapes are just commonly or are often used whenever you are talking. And so one of the ways to animate lip sync is to listen for the sounds, not for the letters, but for the sounds, and animate the visemes or the phonemes that go or that are used to create that sound, right? This pose library is really all we're going to do there is create a group of the visemes that we need in order to do that. And there's a subtle difference, but not much, between visemes and phonemes, or visemes and phonemes, however you want to say it. One is about how it's visibly viewed on your mouth. The other one is much more about the auditory part of it. Usually you'll hear phoneme used in reference to like speech therapy or something like that. You are teaching people to make a shape that allows them to make a specific sound. So the different ones that exist, there is not really like a master list of the perfect visemes and phonemes. Like, I'm sure there are for speech therapists. In terms of animators, we usually realize that some of these you can kind of double dip. So you're going to find a whole bunch of different lists of this, right? Like, here's some examples of it. And somebody pointed out, like the consonants up here, C, D, N, R, S, T, X, Y, or X, Z. And they're like, that's not how I make the R sound. Like, race car, like try making race car with your race car. It's hard, right? However, it is the way you make the R sound if that R sound comes at the end of a sentence, right? Connor, right? Connor, like you may make a little bit more of a sound, right? So some of these, like this is one list of like different face poses that people can make. Recognize like MVP, that's where you're pinching your lips together. F and V is where you're kind of biting your bottom lip, like you're taking your bottom lip and tucking it under your top teeth. The ah, e, I, like those are a little different. Like some E's, you're showing your top teeth more. Some E's, you're not. There's a lot of differences in some of these. So that's why you're going to find different lists or different illustrations of this when you go looking for it, right? When we see A, ooh, E, right? So there are several where you have to kind of pinch your mouth together, right? Ooh shape or wah, right? And that's where the corners of your mouth go narrow. Like they go in and make a more narrow mouth opening. Food, right? Your mouth goes to ood, right? So there are those, a lot of these examples of different elements. L, N, some of those require your tongue to do a little bit of something in your mouth. And a lot of times, sometimes you're making those noises when your mouth is not fully open. So you can almost hide some of the fact that tongue isn't doing a lot. Your tongue really doesn't do very much. It just kind of lays in your mouth until you need one of these L, T, N sounds, right? Now, not all shapes are the same, right? So earlier we did make, right? Make. And you'll notice that the corners of your mouth are kind of wide. And it does the same if you're doing like me, right? Me. It's because that E sound or that A sound is wide that follows it. Versus moo, right? If you notice the M you make with something like that, moo, you're already preparing for the sound that comes after it. Right? So all of these are things to recognize in the way that your mouth works when you're talking. All right. So we've covered the mouth quite a bit. The last thing I want to say before I jump in here and start animating, when you're listening to this audio track, like let's listen to it one more time. He said,
"It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19.
So we're going to animate this, it's okay, I know how to ride a bike part.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
A little bit more.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay,
There we go. So this is,
know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So recognize the words he is saying is, it's okay, I know how to ride a bike. Those are the words, if you, like when this was written in the script, those were the words that were written down. That's not what he says. He says, it's okay, right? The first noise he makes is, it's okay. Right? Like he kind of starts at the end of the T, it's okay, right? And we don't hear that eh. So we're not going to animate that eh. Right? We're only going to animate the sounds we hear, not the sounds that would be written down. And that takes practice to kind of turn those off. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. There's the how to ride a bike. Like that's not how to ride a bike. That's how to ride a bike, right? So I need you to recognize that what we're animating is the shape that is going to appear on your face if you're making those noises. How many of you are familiar with alligator food? I know what I'm talking about there. Maybe. Alligator food is like just something that like kids used to say when I was a kid. And I'm sure there's some variation of that. It's like you're sitting in like elementary school class and you look over at somebody and you mouth, right? And it looks like, I love you. And they're like, what? And you're like, I said alligator food. And that's why kids are stupid. So, I was one of them, I was stupid. Like it's childish, it's silly, but it points out that alligator food and I love you look just alike, right? Those on your mouth look just alike. And I've heard other people give me other examples of the ones that they did when they were kids, right? So that's what we're doing here. We're animating the sounds that we hear, right? We're animating the face shapes for that. It's also important to recognize that human beings are different, right? How many of you are familiar with vocal fry? It's like a phrase that kind of garnered some attention in the media. Vocal fry is kind of this thing that that audiologists and people who study speech have recognized as becoming a trend in the way that people talk, particularly younger girls, where they kind of like make the back of their throat kind of white, like kind of got like a gravel sound to it, and it's actually really stressful on your voice. But it's something that is kind of became a trend, whether people realize it or not. It's probably more of a meme if you actually look at the real definition of it. And that it's something that people are doing all over the place because they hear other people doing it. But when people do that, if you're doing the vocal fry, that means you're putting extra stress on the back of your throat to form some of those sounds, and you're using your mouth for it less. So that means people who do vocal fry, they move their mouth less, right? The same is like, let's say you have some guy who has a really big, deep voice. He may be talking a little more from the back of his throat, and you're getting most of that noise from the back of the throat, not the front of the mouth, right? You have to listen for stuff like that and sort of make your best guess on is that working right. I had a friend when I was in Animation Mentor who she did a shot, and during like the critique pass, they were like, what's she doing with her lips? Like it feels like she's over enunciating. And what they realized was, or what the mentor ended up realizing is, she shot the reference for it herself, and she had braces. So if her character has braces, they're going to move their mouth differently than a character who doesn't have braces. So there's lots of things that are very distinctive toward your character that you have to decide. I recognized the other day, recording a video for a class, I apparently talk out of one side of my face. Like I didn't realize it, but I don't talk symmetrically. I always talk like to one side. And I said something about it to my wife, and she was like, "Yeah, you didn't know that." So like people just have these mannerisms. These are for you to decide. These are for you to make creative decisions about. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and start dialing in the vizings. We're going to go ahead and start by making our first one. so you can see how this works. Okay. That's the noise we're going to animate. Now, before we even get there, the noise that he makes, that's what that is right there on our wave line, right? You see that wavelength peak? Now, that means our keyframe, because the noise of you have to get your mouth into that position before you can make that noise. And that means that keyframe needs to come earlier. It needs to be like on frame 104, not on frame 106. A lot of times, I was the same way. Your first animation, even sometimes your second or third animation will lip sync, you'll watch it and you'll realize that the lip sync feels off by a frame or two. And a lot of times the way you can fix that is to just grab all of your keyframes and slide them back a frame. It's more common that people pose the face shapes later or too late instead of too early. So that's sometimes one of the reasons it'll feel slightly off. So I'm going to go ahead and start on frame 104, and I'm going to go ahead and create that shape. So I also, like, one of the things that's going to get annoying is as I start scrubbing, where I'm posing on my face over here, my character's going to be moving all around. I want to be able to just focus on that. So I'm going to go back to the beginning, right here. Actually, you can go all the way back to frame 1 if you'd like. And I'm going to create a new camera. And I'm going to choose that camera, camera 2. I'm actually going to go up here and I'm going to rename this face cam. I'll select the face and hit F. So I'm up here looking at my character's face. Now again, once I start animating, he's going to move, right? But what I can do is I can grab this face cam and hit Control G to group it. I can name that face cam group. And then I can select the character's head control, which is this green one, select the group and do constrain parent. And now wherever my camera goes, or wherever my character's head goes, my camera goes with it. And I have the ability to sort of zoom in and out a little bit too if I want to like get in here close on the mouth to focus on it. So this is how I usually work, is with these two cameras side by side. All right. So I'll go ahead and go back to frame 100. Select the face, and we're going to go ahead and start dialing in this shape. So we'll start on, say, 104, get the face selected, set a keyframe on everything, and I'm going to go ahead and sort of pose this in to get that S shape, T shape, kind of a combination of both. So a couple of things you'll notice in here. On our controls, we have the ability, at least right here on this one, to add some pucker and some pinch in the corners of the mouth. So the pucker is going to be this down here at the bottom. We can add some, take it away. Again, this is the camera we're animating to. So this is the one where I want all of the shapes to look right. This is just allowing me to grab stuff. We also have this corner pinch in and out. And that'll allow me to get something like this. So if I'm going for that TS shape, maybe I get something this. Maybe close my jaw a little bit because it is an S shape. So maybe like that. Feels like it's got a little bit of frown on it, so I'll go ahead and put it up here. Now, it's also worth mentioning that when I'm doing this, I'm going to create these poses for me, and the way that I animate. I'm going to animate these pretty neutral, right? These are not going to have a ton of emotion in them. And the way I animate is I go in later and I add extra emotion in an animation layer. So we got the face there, we hit S, and now we got I'm blending into that T and that S. Now here's where this studio library becomes very handy. As long as I have all of those selected, I can go in here to this plus sign and go to pose, and I can save this pose to use it for later. So if I click here, it saves me a little picture. I'm going to call this TS1 and hit save. And you see that it adds it to my library. Now most of these poses you're seeing here are poses that I did from last class period. And this is really beneficial because now I can start dialing these in way faster to animate my character. Let me see if I can find a way of laying these out where it doesn't get in my way quite as much. I usually keep this pose library in another window. Maybe up there. Oh, that's not what I want. Maybe like right here. Oh, can I mount this? Oh, that's interesting. All right. All right, let's try it there. And then adjust their size just a little bit so I can grab them easily. So, TS. So then he goes into the O. So I'm going to do a big O first. Now I can double click on this and just add the entire pose, right? If I double click, it just puts that whole pose on there. This is a little annoying. But what I really want to be able to do, yeah, I apparently just have to do it like this. So what I really want to be able to do though is add a little bit of that pose to the animation, right? So it goes. So that's not bad. Maybe we'll shift that back a frame. But he kind of goes into this W next. So if I don't want all of that pose, I can select the pose. So I can do this like W right here. So, and I can just start adding some of it to it. So if I start layering this in, watch what happens to the pose. Like I can get more or less of that pose. So it doesn't have to be 100% of it. I could just get like that. So he has he says, so K. So I got to get this K. So I have a consonant shape in here. I also have some E's. Probably this E is closer. Maybe a little bit more of this consonant mixed in. There we go. A. So we're dialing in the A shape or the A shape. So I got an email you sent by the just to read it. I mean, it just now came through.
Read it after class.
Okay. Not a big hurry.
Is this the class that Chris Higgins is in?
He's in the one right before.
Oh, okay. But I would just.
He actually wasn't here today, though. So let's watch it one more time. Move this out of the way a little bit.
Okay, I know.
So we hear this, like he's going back into another wide AH sound here, right? But that means for him to hit that pose, he had to probably go a little more closed first, right? So if we sort of maybe put in a little bit of this consonant, it's going to close his mouth a little bit, maybe even the E a little bit more. There we go.
Okay, I know how to write it.
So he kind of ends on that E.
Okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So I'm going to go ahead and key that one. So he makes this no sound. So I want to push that E a little bit more. And maybe even, I got this S wide. That might help a little bit. So. Let me move that back. So he needs to go back into that O. Mix of those two, maybe. But he does kind of end it on that no, like how he goes into a pucker. Probably a little too fast.
Okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So how is really just like you just opening his mouth again, right? We add just a little bit more of this O to it. So did you like how to ride a bike? So watch that.
Okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So the ride, he is going into that WR sound. So I'm going to do this a little bit, kind of the, and then he's going to pop out into this I. That's the D. Open just a little bit so we get that D bike. So here's the B's, right? And so I'm just going to dial that one all the way in. Actually, I want to move this one back just a touch. I don't usually like having my animations transition over just one frame. But I also want to be able to hold that B for 2 frames. Right. So let's go ahead and dial in a portion of that. I'm probably going to take out this one right here. I don't know that it's necessary.
You know how to ride a bike. It's okay.
Maybe I just shift these down a little bit so I can do it over right there. Just add just a little bit of this consonant. So listen to little bitty noises, ride a bike. So that has like a tap at the end of it. I can barely hear it.
So
right there, I'm just going to pop his mouth open just a touch more. And so now if we watch this, it should look okay.
it's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So let's play blast that really quick and watch it. Quick time, that, blah. Play blast that out. There we go.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So, that's got that all dialed in there. It feels a little stiff to me. So this is my personal way of working. I dial all of these in. If it feels like they're hitting the right spots, I'm gonna have to shift some stuff. I'm gonna have to add some frames, take some keys out of there. But if it feels like it's hitting pretty close, then my next stage is to clean up the jaw pass. So I will go in here, grab the jaw control. I'm going to move this off stage here for a second. And with the jaw control selected, I will work on the rotate that is causing most of the mouth opening and closing to happen, right? So in this case, this is rotate X, and so anywhere where it feels like it flattens out a little bit, I can check to see, does it need to overshoot or does it need to ease in? Maybe areas like this that feels a little too simplified, so I could go to keys, add key tool, maybe get me just a little bit of overshoot on that. Even areas where you could add some drag. So there's just a lot of little things that I would do on this curve to make it feel a little bit more punctuated. Bike is one that's interesting. So he's going to pop out into that. And so a lot of times I will grab this tangent and break it. That way I can get this like a little bit more like that. Right?
Ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
Now, the next thing I'm going to do, and this one's one that's a thinker, but it was really like important when I realized this. The corners of your mouth don't always hit at the same time as your jaw. In fact, usually it doesn't hit at the same time as the rest of your mouth. It usually leads that motion. So like, because your corners of your mouth have to get there in preparation for the next sound, they're usually a frame earlier. So a lot of times what I will do is just grab those two and move all of those keyframes one frame earlier. And so just by doing that, usually it makes my animation a little bit better. So let's go ahead and watch it. And it'll loosen it up a little bit so it doesn't feel like that pose to pose hitting really hard thing. So.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
Okay. So that's the way that I work. I'm going to show you another way that is really beneficial to some people. So people who, I'll ask you on a second here. I'm curious to people who have taken the class before, which way you kind of prefer. So for the second half of the animation, I've been doing it since I was 19, he says.
I've been doing it since I was 19.
So let's go ahead and shrink that.
I've been doing it since I was 19.
I've been doing it since I was 19. So, how many of you have ever, like when I was in elementary school, apparently today is just like Greg walking down memory lane day. When I was in elementary school, the way they taught us how to recognize syllables was to put your hand underneath your chin. And whenever you would talk and your chin would, or your jaw would open, if you're saying a word, every time your chin would push down on your hand, that was a syllable, right? So, Mississippi, right? You got 4. Yeah. I wasn't counting. So that's how I learned to count syllables. Interestingly, that is the majority of what makes your animation communicate. So that jaw moving up and down, that rotate curve on your jaw is really important. So you got to make sure that when you're posing all these mouth shapes, you're taking that jaw into consideration. But we can kind of show that that's really important by watching this thing.
Get down, 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 get down.
Jungle Boogie, Jungle Boogie, get it up, Jungle Boogie, Jungle Boogie, Jungle Boogie, get up, Jungle Boogie, Jungle Boogie, Jungle Boogie. This is absurd. I refuse to Jungle Boogie. Oh. Boogie, boogie. No, I said I will not Jungle Boogie. No Jungle Boogie. I can't Jungle Boogie. Jungle Boogie. Jungle Boogie. I can't Jungle Boogie. Jungle Boogie.
Get down, 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 get down.
Get it. I feel it from y'all. Let it flow. Get it. Jungle Boogie. Jungle Boogie. Get up. Let's go. I said, say, get up, get up, get up, get down, y'all. Get up. Get down with the boogie. Ooh, get down. Get down, y'all. Let's go. Get down.
Hey, buddy. Hey, Al, we're closing. You have to leave.
What exactly is in a Mai Tai anyway?
So, it doesn't take very much to convince us that those noises are coming out of their mouth, right? It's really just the flapping of a jaw. So that's where I'm going to hop out just for a second of this lecture and talk about exercise 4. So because that's the truth, I want you to practice this a little bit. If we get our exercise briefs, and I go ahead and turn this on to published, so you can now see it. Exercise 4, puppet. So you have your 3 audio clips that you are going to pick out for this project, and I want you to find 3 of them, and I want you to find a sock. And you're going to put the sock on your hand, and you're going to turn it into a puppet. And you're going to use that puppet to shoot reference of your character or your puppet saying the lines from your audio track. Now this isn't something you're necessarily going to use as reference for your shot. What this is going to do is it's going to make you become very conscious of the fact of what your jaw is doing during an animation of a lip sync, right? So find 3 audio clips, you're going to record those. We're going to use, and you're going to shoot this video reference, or you're going to shoot this reference of this puppet for at least one take of each of those audio clips. So that's exercise 4. Another reason we do this is because we need to help you pick out which audio clip you're going to use. Now, because of time constraints, we may not do that openly in class. I may actually make that like a discussion board where people go give you feedback on that. So that's the next class period, Tuesday, April the 14th, is it? Yes. Yep. Okay, yes. So this brings up the question for people of what to do if you, like if you're repeating the class exercises, there's a lot of different options for you all. So it really depends on what it is you're working on. So it could be if you're shooting reference for that. One of the sort of options for a piece I really want to see some people take advantage of is analyzing a shot. So you find an animated clip or even a live action clip and analyze in the same way that like those frame by frame videos do on YouTube. Analyze those videos as upfront animation information, silhouette, line of action, overlapping action, stuff like that. So that's kind of, you all are kind of also open to kind of pitch me some ideas for exercises that might be appropriate for what you're doing. Okay, so finally, we're going to go ahead and animate the second way. And this is the way that, I don't know, I'm curious. This is actually kind of using the Muppet method. What we're going to do is I'm going to animate the rest of this in layers, not animation layers, but like in passes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to animate just the jaw moving up and down the same way the Muppets work, right? And you're going to be able to see that it kind of works. Like once we do that, you'll be able to understand most of what he says and kind of believe that it's coming out of his mouth, because that carries most of the weight. And then I'll do another pass where I just add in the lips. And so those keys will all be in different spots, so we'll get natural overlapping action in that way. But you kind of have to be able to predict some stuff when you're animating the jaw that way. Just out of curiosity, how many of the people who are repeating the class, how many of you animate lip sync that way instead of the phoneme? So a couple of people do. How many of you, like, that idea sounds crazy to you? Yeah, how many of you like the Muppet method? Oh, so actually, the majority of it. How about you on the back? Muppet method or the phoneme method, or do you have a different thing entirely? I like the preset method, works pretty well, so. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do that method and just see how it works. So we grab the jaw and he says,
I've been doing this since I was 19.
So I'm going to go ahead and close that just a little bit. So he goes into a B, so that means his mouth has to close, so I'll get it pretty close to closed. Yes. But then when he said B, like it's going to have to open a little bit. And so that's where it's going to open a little bit more. I feel like that needs to go back a little bit. Let's see how that looks.
I've been doing this since I was 19. 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 I've been doing this since I was 19.
So, I made a separate picker really quick here that just allows me to select just those 4 shapes around his mouth. And so the next thing I'll do is I'll go in and add in the layers that make those things clear. There'll probably be even fewer of these because, like if you look at it, fewer of these because, like very little of my lips are moving on these because it's mainly just my jaw doing most of that. So I don't have to move in and out as much and change the lips on every pose. So let's try this. So right there, that needs to be in a B shape. So we'll go ahead and push his mouth closed. Grab those. Push these in for that narrow. So maybe, like in these sections, I may just zero that out and get rid of some of my corner stuff here. That's a big stretch there. It's almost 10 frames where I don't have to move it at all.
Doing this since I was not.
Probably right there. It was actually better. And so maybe I'll... let's do that whole face.
since I was 19. I've been doing it since I was 19.
So there, I'm going to push the width just a little bit more. So there we go.
I've been doing this since I was 19. 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 I've been doing.
And so this is where I would go in and add some tongue animation. And again, I can also go in here and grab these corners and possibly move those a frame earlier to make that happen just a
I was
little bit.
19. I've been doing this since I was 19. I've been doing this.
So now if I play blast this whole thing, I get,
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19.
so now a couple of things I've done here that just when I was creating the face poses, I was kind of sloppy and I just chose all of the face. And so that means that these eyebrows now have keyframes on them that they don't need to. So if I grab all of those and delete those keys, now I can reanimate those. Now, I want to talk just a second about what happens with your eyebrows. So your eyebrows don't move all the time. It's kind of like you hit a pose and you kind of hold that pose and then you shift to another pose and kind of hold that. And it's a moving hold, but like sometimes your eyebrows just swimming all around all over the place just looks wrong, right? You kind of use your eyebrows for punctuation of emotion. And there's a combination of what your eyebrows are doing and what the lower half of your face is doing that creates the effect of a specific emotion. So for example, if you smile and your eyebrows don't do very much, it's actually been proven that most people can pick out a fake smile just because it doesn't reach your eyebrows, like your eyebrows aren't reacting to it. However, if your eyebrows are reacting too much and you're smiling, maybe it's a little condescending, or maybe it's that you got a present you didn't like and you're like, oh, this is really nice, thanks, right? What if you like put your eyebrows in this like angry pose and then smile? Then it starts feeling menacing, right? It's like you're happy about the negative thoughts in your head, right? So the emotions that we're able to show on a character's face is a combination between eyebrows and mouth. Just pushing a character's corner of their mouths up, that doesn't mean you made them happy. You may have made them look crazy, right? You may have made them look like in some other variation of that smile, right? Like an angry face with like hurt eyebrows is going to read as defensive, right? So like it's a combination of these things. So I usually like to animate them separately. So what I did is I wiped out those keyframes on the eyebrows, and I'm going to go through here and just put some keys on here that express some emotion. So I'm going to start off a little lower just so I can push my character's eyebrows up. Is this like the eyebrows? Apparently. So I apparently also made a button for that. So that's cool. Thanks, past me. So we start there low. So I want it to be kind of high by here. So I want it to be like in this, like So keep it kind of low at first, that way we can go into that pretty quickly.
It's okay, I know how to ride.
Maybe it's a little late.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since.
So
Okay, I know how to ride a bike.
So I'm going to slowly kind of push them down over time here to here. And then over this, like right before he moves his head, I'm going to drive them back up again to get that emphasis of this sound he's getting ready to make. Now, it's important to recognize that I did it before he throws his head back, because if I did it during him throwing his head back, then we would miss it. So
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was.
we get that like that, right? So he has this next emotion that he goes through where he says, been doing it since I was 19, right? And like, it's almost like he's bragging, like he's like trying to impress you with that fact, right? And so I want to send him into this like, almost like preaching mode, right? I want to been doing it since I was 19, right? And so I'll grab those keys for that and push those down. If I push these down too much, it's going to make him look a little bit angry. So let me push them together a little bit. Let's try that.
I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay.
I think I can push them lower than that.
Ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay, I know. I've been doing this since I was 19.
And so that 19, I'm probably going to pop them up one more time.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay, I know.
And I'll probably keep this last pose closer to that.
Since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
A lot of times if you're going to do any overlapping action on this, I will take my two middle brow controls and I'll make those happen one frame earlier. And so it's just going to be really subtle offset.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19.
So in terms of blinks, I'm going to go ahead and delete the keyframes off of those as well. Now the first thing I like to do is I like to sort of close my upper lid just a little bit so I'm not getting this like wide-eyed, like kind of creepy stare. There we go. And so now when he's out here in these poses, like this is going to feel a little bit more natural. Now one of the things I'll, so to animate a blink, there's a pretty simple formula for it. I'm going to set keyframe here, go forward 2 more keyframes, and that's where the eyes are closed. For the eyes to be closed, I will put these about 3/4 of the way down, something like this. Bring these the rest of the way up. So maybe something like that. Let's go ahead and close those all the way. Top. So about like that, right? And let me make sure I have all of those selected before I key that. And then the next frame, so you hold that for 2 frames. So it takes 2 frames to close. You hold it for 2 frames. And then over 3 frames, you open them back up. So I'll copy that key pose. So probably about here, paste, paste. So you get this.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay,
that really is pretty much the formula for a blink. And although you'll want to have some variation on the eyelids, like really, once you get that, you can kind of copy this and paste it a few places to get some quick blinks. Although you'll want to like elaborate a little bit more on some of them. So your head also, like if your head moves quickly, as a sort of defensive mechanism, your eyes close because you don't want to gouge it out on a tree limb or something like that. So just sort of like automatically our eyes want to close when we do a quick head gesture. It also helps because if your eyes are open while your head's moving around, it gets a little disorienting, right? It's kind of to close them so you can refocus once you've turned. And so like in this quick head motion where he pulls his head up, we can leave it like that. I'll probably also go in and just expand the amount of time the eyes are closed during that.
How to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since
So the last little thing I'll do is sometimes I'll go through, and you could do this in a layer or you could do this here. I would go through and find the spots where my character blinks. There. And so just very subtly, when the character blinks, I would have the eyebrows dip just a little bit.
I know how to ride a bike.
So in this quick motion, maybe it's not necessary. There we go. So, the last thing are the eyes, and right now they've got keyframes all over them. I'll delete that. And so I want to sort of aim my eyes. The big thing, you don't want to get your eyes like up into the eyelid like that. Like your eyes should never go any higher than your pupil. What is the black spot called? I always get these confused. The pupil. Like you never really want your eye pupil to go up underneath the lid, right? That starts making you look like you're passing out. So like here would be the highest you'd really want it to go. But I can start here with my eyes aimed. And then I want to play around with like some eye direction stuff. So maybe I have him look down while he's thinking about this. Maybe I favor this one a little bit. And as he's not going to slowly drift down. Our eyes dart all the time. And an eye dart should take about 2 frames. So to dart from looking at one person over to the other person takes about 2 frames of animation. So you're going to want to make these motions pretty quick. That's a pretty big jump that his eyes do there. So maybe we get it like right about, and you can always sometimes hide these in a blink as well. So maybe like right here, I'll keep him kind of looking at this person he's talking to up here. And then when he blinks, and then maybe by here, he's back up. So I'm just kind of refocusing him every now and then on the person he's talking to. And right here, maybe lead with that just a little bit. So he gets this.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing it since I was 19. It's okay.
So the last few things I do is very, like I like to work this way, but when I'm doing my lip sync, I don't put a ton of emotion in it. And the reason for that is because that's something that's really easy to do in a layer. So I'm going to now create an animation layer for the full face. Like I've got the eyebrows, they have some emotion, but I'll go in here, create an animation layer for the full face. Call it emote layer. And I can just set keyframes on this to change the entire animation. Right? So for pose 1 here, let's say I wanted to make him happy through the first half of it, right? Like he's almost like condescending, like this person's like, you know, implied he can't ride a bike, and he's like sort of smiling at the beginning, right?
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19.
So we could do that. And then halfway through, I could give him, like, the second half, like starting here, I could give him a slight change of emotion, right? Maybe he goes from, cool. So maybe from here you do this change of emotion to where he's no longer smiling. He is kind of going back to, oh my. From here, I'd like to take him a little bit more in this, like, almost like a sneer, right? Like, not to underestimate him, like he's almost cocky about it, right? Apparently. Probably put a little bit of a pinch in this corner. So we get.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay, I know. Doing it since I was 19.
So I'd like to end it on a slightly different pose. Where this isn't quite as rotated. And he's kind of maybe a little more like, duh. We could also do some stuff with the eyebrows here if I wanted to. If we wanted to add some emotion here to it, right?
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19.
So you're getting the idea, hopefully. Play blast this out. Sure. You can use animation layers for a lot of things in here. If you wanted to do your eye blinks on one layer, if you wanted to do anything you wanted to on different layers, this becomes very useful in terms of poses. And then this is what we get.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay,
just to give you an idea, this is what I had actually created for the previous class.
It's okay, I know how to ride a bike. I've been doing this since I was 19. It's okay, I know how to ride a bike.
A little less eye animation on that one. So, any questions on this? All right. So that's the process. Next class period, I'm going to be going over some overlapping action stuff. And then the next class period, I won't be here. I'm also going to send out an email here in just a second to all of you to a link to the Gnomon walkthrough of this. And that would be something that I would strongly encourage you all to just sort of play in the background while you're working to get some sort of some last minute information about how to pull this piece together. So I'll send that out here in just a minute. Otherwise, the rest of the class is yours. Thanks.